Northern Vigilance, Operation Northern Vigilance, when the Americans were doing an operation, an exercise to prevent Soviet incursion into US airspace. That, of course, must have been known about by Al Qaeda through the Saudi lobbies in America. And one of them was meeting with members of the American establishment on the day of, one of the Binladens was on the day of 9/11. Now, through this way, the Saudi lobby, which is extremely powerful and extremely close to the American establishment, although they too are enemies, is the way that 9/11 occurred and happened, in my view. And we have to make serious inroads into investigating why the American establishment was cowed, could not do anything about the attacks, or chose to ignore intelligence to the contrary, that America wasn't safe, that America was actually in danger near 9/11, and there were some people who were whistleblowers who were sidelined. Was it because the American government themselves had been threatened by Al Qaeda, the Saudis, and the Bin Ladens, who have hundreds of thousands of operatives? As the body count has shown through the several wars against Al Qaeda, has led to 52,000 Al Qaeda operatives being killed, and yet there's over 150,000 Taliban fighters. Those are the foot soldiers, obviously. They're not operatives, intelligence operatives, but the 52,000 intelligence operatives that the Saudi and Bin Laden crime families have lost, or Bin Laden crime family have lost, they still have $20 billion left in their businesses. And that's the personal wealth of the Bin Laden crime family. Whereas Exxon is, the family that run Exxon is minuscule compared to them. They could not possibly have done 9/11, but they would like people to be frightened of the New World Order, as they call themselves, or ultra-conservative Exxon vermin and Halliburton vermin, so that they will be cowed, so that they are like a government in waiting when the people decapitate the American government. That's the strategy. The other strategy is also to make everyone push Muslims into the arms of the Saudis and Bin Ladens, who are already trying to radicalise them to be like a fifth column within Europe and America, whilst trying to divide pan-European opinion in both the United States and America, that they cannot trust their governments, and that the only people who have anything to do with protecting them are ultra conservatives. And at first they're trying to get people to be ultra conservatives, and then ultra nationalists, sorry, and then try and get them to be ultra conservatives, where they will try and get people to turn on them, because they only believe in, ultra conservatives only believe in self-interest and animal instincts. So they will use psychology, and they will use economic crises and the failings, sometimes the failings of social democracy, because social democracy is not perfect, but it's the best out of a bad lot, in my view. As Winston Churchill said about democracy, democracy is not perfect, but is the best system that people have yet invented out of many other worse systems. Now, why would Al Qaeda and the NWO both want to, although they are both enemies and the NWO didn't do 9/11, why would they both want to decapitate the American government and eventually the European government? Well, they're both aware of each other's moves, or they're all aware of each other's moves, because it's an intelligence-led operations that are going on. But clearly they're not strong enough to do, because they haven't got mass appeal. There's not that many people who are pure evil in the world. Not many people who believe that God has chosen them to be the chosen people, in the sense of the Israeli Likud party or the Saudis believe that they're the chosen people, or the Binladens believe that they're a chosen people. But there's not many people who are so against God or the belief in God that conversely to the NWO, who believe in someone else downstairs, right? That that are willing to go into that just for the sake of a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of power, and really they're slaves to their masters. So there's very few very evil people out there. They do exist, but we must be mindful that most people are good and have good intentions. I still believe that. And also there is the problem of the use of state property and state assets and state personnel through the fact that Al Qaeda and the Saudis and Bin Laden's and Pakistani ISI in the jihadist zone of control infiltrate and use the assets of the state against itself, and so do the NWO in the mostly Western developed world, although they are in other places as well, particularly South Africa, because of the Thatcherite connection there. And they're doing a great deal of harm against the Boer people in South Africa through Zulu nationalism. So they will link up with their enemies. But they did not link up with the Saudis and Bin Ladens. Now, it might be difficult to believe that they would not do that, but they did not do that on 9/11. There's no evidence to say that they did. That's 14 hijackers, though, could bring down the American state so quickly. It's another thing that is so frightening that I'm sure that's one of the reasons why there was no investigation into 9/11. Where does this all leave us? Why do the NWO, why do the Bin Laden's, Saudis and Al Qaeda and Pakistani ISI fear the US and EU government? Because the US and EU governments are backed up by the university system. It's very well organised with very clever people, and the EU and the United States have under arms millions and millions of men and women who are prepared to fight to the death for democracy and the American freedom and European equality. And between them, the US and EU will develop a balance of liberty and equality, and that is what mostly, under democratic rule of law, and that is what the NWO, being pure evil, and the Saudi and Bin Ladens, being pure evil, really fear. Because once they're exposed to the power of other pro-Western feudalistic crime families, pro-democratic even feudalistic crime families, then their time on this earth will be numbered. And the Arab Spring is quickly putting them on the Saudis and the Bin Ladens on the road to irrelevance and extinction. I'm sure you will see in the next 20 years them hanging, or sooner, either on trial for their lives or life imprisonment, or that the people of the Arab Spring will make them constitutional monarchies, which is something that they could not abide, because both the NWO and the Saudis and Bin Ladens are feudalists. This is what it's all about, feudalism. The belief that one set of people own another, which is slavery.